Good morning, everyone. This morning we're going to start talking about measurement. It's chapter 9 in your math book. So if you guys want to follow along with me, pause the video and then you can get on page 509. It's 509, and then you can unpause and get back with me when you're ready. So this is what your first page looks like. And it wants us to look at the picture and see which objects in the picture are shorter than the arch. That's the Gateway Arch that's in Missouri. That is the tallest arch in the world. It is 630 feet tall. Isn't that crazy? So let's look at this picture. Okay. Which objects in the picture are shorter than that arch? Do you see any? We have the trees, yeah. And then if we look back here, I'd say there's probably some buildings back behind the arch or underneath the arch as well. So it wanted us to figure out what was shorter. What does it mean if an object is shorter than another object? Well, let's start by kind of figuring out what the word measurement means. Measurement is basically when you're finding out how long something is. You're finding out its length. Its length is how long something is. So when you're measuring, you're finding out the size of something. Well, here they want to know what is shorter than that arch. That means if the arch is this high, they want to know what is below it. So you guys know what taller and shorter is if your dad is taller than you are. So that's what we were doing here. We were seeing what was shorter or what wasn't as tall as the arch. So I want everyone to go ahead and turn the page. And I want to do this page together. This is just a review on page 510. Actually, it's not a review, but it wants to gauge how much you guys understand, bigger and smaller. So if I have two objects, which one's bigger? Yeah, this one. What about now? Which one's bigger? Yeah, this cup is. What about now? Yeah, this one. Now if I ask you which object is smaller, which one's smaller? Yeah, this one is smaller. It's not as big as this one. So that's just what we're going to do on this first page. Let me see if I can hold this so that we can still see the page. Okay, good. So it says circle the bigger object. Well, let's look at these objects. Which one's bigger? This one or this one? It's going to be this one. You see how this one is bigger than this one? This one's pretty small. Now, sorry, it's falling out of my hand. Let's look at this one. Which one of these objects, it says circle the smaller object. Which one of these two objects is smaller? That means you have to look at the size of both of them. This one's smaller, isn't it? Because it's not as big as this one. Now, the next part wants us to compare length. When we compare, we look at two things or more than two things, and we see how they're alike and how they're different. So it wants us to compare the length. That means we're going to look and see which one is longer or shorter. The directions here say circle the longer object. So it wants us to circle whichever one is longer. It has the most length. Then we're going to draw a line underneath the shorter object. So let's look. Which one of these two is longer? This one, right? So we're going to put a circle around it, and then we're going to underline this one. And then let's look over here. Which one of these is longer? This one. So we're going to circle this one and put a line under that one. Now I want you guys to go to the next page. It's on page 511, and we're going to work on the vocab builder. So what I want you guys to do, I'm going to draw my board to look kind of like your book so that we can see it a little better. We have length. and we have numbers. And it wants us to sort these review words up in the corner of the book. So let's look at these. We have 9, 11, so both of those are our number words. Long and short, so those would describe the size of something. We have 10 and 12, which are number words, and then we have longer and shorter, which would also describe the size or the length of something. So let's sort these. If I have, you guys see my board? There we go. If I have the number, well, I gave that one away, didn't I? If I have the word 9, is that going to go under length or go under numbers? It's going to go under numbers because that's one of our number words. So over here, I'm going to write the word 9. What about the next one? We have the word 10 if we go across in our box. So if I'm right here, I went to this one next. So we're going across. What is 10? Is 10 a number word or a word that describes length? It's a number word again. Let's go back down underneath to the second row. What about 11? Is 11 a number word? It sure is. Oops. Then the next one is 12. Is 12 a number word or does it describe length? Yeah, a number word. Now, what about the word long? Does long describe the length or does it describe a number word? Yeah, it's for length. If we look at how long something is, we're seeing how much length it has. And length goes this way. So usually height would be how tall you are this way. Length would be how long you are this way. What about the word longer? If we go across in the box, longer. Is longer going to be something that tells us about length or a number word? Yeah, it's going to be about length. What about the word short? Is short a length word or is it a number word? Yeah, it goes with length. So we had the word short. And then lastly, we had the word shorter. Is shorter a length word or a number word? Yeah, a length one. A length word. So I want you guys to go ahead and you can pause the video and I want you guys to fill in the vocabulary boxes. So this part in your book, I want you to go ahead and fill in these two boxes with the words that go with either the number words or the length. I don't know if you can see that. But I want you guys to go ahead and pause it and do it now. Because once we know these words, that will help us better understand our measurement. Now for the next part, it says complete the sentences with the correct word. It says, a crayon is blank than a marker. Well, if I have a crayon and I have a marker, what is it going to be? A crayon is blank than a marker. Is it going to be longer or shorter? Yeah, shorter, because a crayon is a lot smaller. It's not as big or not as long as a marker. So a crayon is shorter than a marker. And then the next one says, a toothbrush is blank than a paperclip. Well, if I have a toothbrush, you guys know how big a toothbrush is, and I have a paper clip. Is the toothbrush longer or shorter than this paper clip? Yeah, it's going to be longer. Good. A toothbrush is longer than a paper clip. And then down here on number 3, we have numbers. So guess what we're going to do? We're going to match the number words up in our box up here at the top to these numbers. So what's this first number? 9. What about this one? 10, 11, and 12. So what we're going to do is we're going to find those number words up here in the box, and we're going to write them in these blanks. So I want you guys to go ahead and do that on your own. Now I'm going to talk a little bit about time. When we do daily routines, we always say there's not enough time for time, and usually we don't go over it. But today, we have time for time. So I first want to show you guys my clocks, because we've talked about the clock in class when we have gone over time. So I have my clocks, right? Do you guys remember which one the minute hand is? The minute hand is the longer one, and then the hour hand is the shorter one. Let me spin this, and I want you to see how fast each of them move. So look how fast the minute hand goes. It goes around pretty fast with me pushing it, doesn't it? But look at the hour hand. It moves, but just a lot slower. Let's watch when it moves. Let's watch the minute hand. I'm going to go, and it goes all the way around the clock in the time that this hour hand only moves one number, doesn't it? That's because 1 hour has 60 minutes in it. 1 hour has 60 minutes in it. There's minutes. All of these little orange dash marks are minutes. So if we counted all of these and went around my clock, we would get to 60. So that means anytime the minute hand goes all the way around, it has been 1 hour. So if the minute hand went all the way around one whole time, it would change this from 3 o'clock to 4 o'clock. And then when we have a half hour, that means the minute hand only goes halfway around the clock. So half the plate or half the clock is a half hour. Let me use this one again. Right now it's 3 o'clock. If I move my minute hand halfway, that means it's now 3:30. But wait, this is a 6 down here. How come it's a 30? Well, even though these red numbers right here are the hours on the clock, so right now that it was 3, that's the hour, and then 30 minutes passed, we're talking about the minutes now. So if we look, each one of these numbers for the hours is worth 5 minutes. Because if we count these little orange dash marks, I don't know if you can see those, that there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 minutes to get to this one. So that means there's 5 minutes for each one of these. So if we count, we have 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30. So when we came around for a half hour, 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30, it's been 30 minutes. Do you guys see that? Let's do another one. So I'm going to bring my minute hand back up here, and let's look at the time. It's 4 o'clock, right? So the minute hand is on, it's up here at the 12, so that means it's on 0 minutes. It hasn't been any minutes. And the hour hand is on the 4. That means it's the hour of 4 o'clock. Now if I move my minute hand a half hour, it's now what time? The hour is 4 and it is 30 minutes past. Good. So now we're going to talk about longer and shorter again. So if I have 2 lines, if I have two lines, hope you can't see my board, can you? Here's one line, and here's one line. Which one's longer? Oops, still can't see it, can you? There, now you can see it. Which one of my two lines is longer? Yeah, this one. See? It is longer than the purple one. But what if I ask you which one's the longest? Well, guess what? That means I'm going to have to draw a third line. So I'm going to take my marker and I'm going to draw a third line. Now, which one is the longest of these three lines? Still this one. It's got the most length. It is the longest of these lines. What if I asked you which one is the shortest? Do you remember or do you know? Let's look. If this is the longest, this one is longer than this one and this one. Well, if we look and we use our reasoning skills, this one is still longer than this one. So that means this one would have to be the shortest. So if I would label these, this one would be longest, and this one down here would be the shortest. And that's what we're going to work on in our next activity. So I want you guys, well actually can you see this first? I labeled them longest and shortest. And even if you think, man, those are longer words than we've worked with before. I don't know if I can read them. I bet you can, because let's think. What does shortest start with? What's that sound? That sh, sh, sh sound. Shortest. So you can use that sound and you can think, well, how is that sh sound spelled? Oh yeah, it's SH. So then you can come up here to one of your word boxes like this one, and you can find the word shortest. So I want everyone to go ahead and turn the page to page 513. 513. You're gonna go to the one that has the straw and the key on it. So you can pause the video while you get there. So what we're gonna do on this, it says, use objects to show the problem. Draw to show your work. Down here at the bottom, it says compare the straw and the key. Which is longer, which is shorter? How do you know? Well, let's look at them. Which one do you guys think is longer? Let's think about what length is. So how long something is this way. Which one would be longer? Yeah, the straw is going to be longer because it has more length this way. It extends out or goes out longer this way than the key does. So it wants us to compare. So which one would we say is longer? The straw. So beside the straw, I'm going to write longer. And we can use our sounds for that too, even if we don't find our word bank, because we have l, a, g, and then we have that sound spelling. Do you guys remember? This one's going to be er. Good. So then by the key, what did we decide the key was? If this one's longer, then this one has to be what? Yeah, shorter. So I'm going to write shorter because it's not as long as the straw. So I have longer and shorter. So let's do some more of these. If I have this flashlight and I have a ruler, which one's shorter? This one or this one? Yeah, this one is going to be shorter because if we look, this one is not as, well, length would be this way though. This one is not as long as this one. So this one is shorter. What about if I have, this one's a little trickier because they're both kind of small. My marker lid and this teeny tiny paper clip. Which one is longer? This one's longer because, look, it's still bigger than this one. So I want you guys to turn the page. And now it wants us to practice figuring out which strings or pieces of yarn are longest and which ones are shortest. So the first one it told us, and it drew part of the picture for us. It says, order the pieces of yarn from shortest to longest. Draw the missing piece. So it gave us the shortest one, and it gave us the longest one. Well, if this one's the longest, that means it is longer than any other piece of string, right? And if this one is the shortest, that means this one is shorter than any other piece of string. So that means when we draw this one, we have to draw it being longer than this one, but shorter than this one. So let me get my marker and let's see if I can do it. So it's got to be longer than the short one, but not as long as the longest one. So that's how we would draw it. Let me put my little line. Because if something is the shortest, that means nothing's smaller than it. And if this one is the longest, then that means nothing is going to be longer or bigger than that. So my middle piece of string that I just drew had to be in between both of those. Now the next one says draw 3 lines in order from shortest to longest. When it says in order, that means we're going to put them in a sequence, and we're going to go shortest, and then the middle one, and then the longest at the bottom. So if we do that, how are these lines going to look? I hope you guys can't see that. Okay, we have shortest, and then our middle one, and then our longest one, right? So this one for shortest is going to have to look something like that. It can be a little bigger or a little smaller, but that means none of the other ones are going to be shorter than that one. So that one's our smallest one. The longest one is going to be the biggest of all of them. So that means I'm going to draw my line, and I'm going to bring it over, and I want to stop here. But you guys can stop wherever, as long as you make sure that the longest one is longer or bigger than any of your other lines. So that means my middle one has to be somewhere in the middle of those, because it's not the shortest and it's not the longest, so it has to be between both of those. This time we're putting them in order from longest to shortest. So the longest one is going to go first, and then the shortest one is going to be last. So let's try that one. If I have my longest one first, that means my biggest one is going to be the first one that I draw. So I have my longest one first, and I'm going to make him that big. He's pretty big. So that's my longest one. And then I have my middle one, and then my shorter one. Well, let me draw my shorter one first. So I drew my shortest one, and I had to fix my longest one because I accidentally smeared it off. So I have my longest and my shortest one in the purple. Do you guys see that on the bottom? So now for my middle line, it has to go in between my longest and shortest, because it's not the smallest one, but it's not the biggest one either. So it is going to have to go in the middle. And its length is going to be somewhere bigger than the shortest one, but smaller than that longest one. Does that make sense, guys? So now I want you guys to go over to this page. You guys are going to do this one on your own, but I do want to explain it first. It says, draw 3 crayons in order from shortest to longest. If you don't want to draw the crayon, just take a crayon and draw a different colored line for each one. That way you still know what you were showing. So you're going to go from shortest to longest. So the shortest one is going to go first, and the longest one is going to go last. And then for this part, it says, Draw 3 crayons in order from longest to shortest. So again, you can take your crayons and just do different colors. And you're going to start with the longest one first, and then do the shortest one last. So it's going to go big to small. At the bottom it says complete the sentence. This one might be a little trickier. It says, so you're going to have to look at the pieces of yarn, and this one says the blank yarn is the shortest. So it wants you to write the color word for each piece of yarn. So this one says the blank yarn is the shortest. So you're going to figure out which color is the shortest and write that color word in the blank. This one says the blank yarn and the blank yarn are the same length. So you're going to have to look at the picture, decide which ones are the same length, and you're going to write those color words in. And then if you turn over, it says draw 4 objects in order from shortest to longest. So they can be any objects you want. So you could pick paper clips or pens or erasers or anything, and just draw those objects from shortest, so shortest first, to longest, so the bigger one's going to be last. Then it says the string is shorter than the ribbon. The string is shorter than the ribbon. The chain is shorter than the ribbon. So you're going to circle the longest object. So it gives you a list over here. Here's the list. It says string, ribbon, and chain. Well, if the string is shorter than the ribbon and the chain is shorter than the ribbon, you're going to have to think, well, which one's going to be longest? So you might even have to draw that out with different colors just so you remember which one is the string, the chain, and the ribbon, and decide which one is longest. And then you're going to circle that word over here on the side of the page. And then the last one says match each word on the left to a drawing on the right. This one you're going to have to think a little bit for too. So this one says shortest and longest. You're not going to draw anything in these boxes, but you're going to match the word to the picture. So this one says shortest, you're going to draw a line to the shortest box, and then you have longest, you're going to draw a line to the longest box. Bye guys, thanks for watching. I hope you have a good day. I will see you guys, well, I won't see you, but you guys will see me tomorrow for another video. Have a good day.